Hello there, everybody. This is Everything is Fine, Things Ruined. I'm your host, Tristan. With me, as always, is your good buddy of mine, Hassan.
That's me.
Yeah, and we're just here having just a real lark in this like crazy fantasy world again. There's another one, and there's also another one over there, but we're not going to go over to that one. That one looks a little dark, but this one over here is pretty good. This one's got like, horses, and it's got elves, and it's got centaur people.
Yeah.
I'm
not big into centaurs, I'm gonna be honest.
No, that's too bad. This is what the world has.
Satyrs way cooler than centaurs.
Okay, well that one over there is satyrs, but that they're all like emo about it.
I don't like that actually.
Yeah, actually, me too.
Actually sounds
let's go over there. This is pretty good.
Interesting idea.
Here we are, the emo centaur world.
Satyrs.
Emo satyr world, where they're all sad about it and stuff, but they're still poetic, and they drink a lot because Bacchanali is a whole thing. We're just having a great old time. This really sad, depressing satyr filled universe, and it's also what one may call a final fantasy of ours. Yes. Oh yeah.
Clearly, the last story was a better Sakaguchi game.
Oh, the last story. Yeah. I got nothing for this bit, to be honest. There's a lot of directions here.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, like, fantasy world. We're in two of them, but they're not really connected. And we're gonna discuss the fantasies of these worlds eventually.
Well,
yeah.
I got some. It's maybe the lack thereof in some ways.
Interesting.
There's some problems. Yeah. So this is my topic. And bit of a weird one. But basically, I want to talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard and Final Fantasy XVI, and how these two games end up failing for similar reasons. And I actually don't think either is a bad game. Like, if I was to have to score them, they'd probably both end up being kind of 7 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed my time with them mostly.
Okay. So they're not failures then.
So like,
what we do to yourself?
I was actually listening to I forget what it was a couple months back, and they made this interesting point that video games are a bit of a weird medium for how you could still kind of consider something a success even when certain core elements of it are just complete failures. Like a movie can have really good visual effects, but if the acting was garbage, or the acting's good, but the plot and the story or the way it's told suck, it's just going to fall apart. Or like, some mediums you can kind of get away with it, like say music. You can have a really good song that's poorly recorded and you still appreciate it, but like
Louis.
I'm sorry?
Louis. Oh, babe.
I don't think
Have you ever heard Louis Louis? You don't know Louis Louis? Okay, everybody sit down for a second.
Yeah, I had to look this up.
Okay, so Louis Louis is an older song, but Louis Louis, the recording that is famous for being Louis Louis, is a cover of the song Louis Louis by
Richard Berry?
No, that's the original one.
Richard Berry is the original,
yes.
And then there's a 1963 hit version by the Kingsmen.
The Kingsmen, yes. So the Kingsmen recorded this song, and because it's such a bad recording. It's not a great cover of the song either. They were clearly, like, the lead singers clearly whacked it on something, or just didn't remember the words. But they had one shot at it, they recorded it, and somehow that made it to air.
Okay,
and,
all right.
And this song blew up, and because of how it was presented, people either loved it and thought it was like this crazy avant-garde kind of thing, or it was satanic trash.
Okay, all right, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's kind of a good example of what I mean when I say, these games are a 7 out of 10, but they're still failures in the sense that, like, the core combat in both these games is fine to good, depending. I know some people love the combat of one or the other. I thought both it was okay, lacking a little bit of depth and tightness.
Sure.
But I was never, like, angry with the combat or anything. I thought the main story was fine in both. And, like, we'll get into all these. There are times where I think the characters are good. But initially when I was there were two words that were rattling around in my brains. And one of those...
But
I no. One of those I still think it holds true, which is meddling. And what I mean by that is both of these games feel like
I got you.
They are failures because of meddling by executives.
Yep. Yeah. I feel that.
Initially, the phrase I was going, the other word that was rattling around in my brain for both of these was cowardly, but I don't want to use that one because I feel like that comes across too much on the developers and everyone else involved in that
cowardly
game.
devs.
And
how dare they make a video game? Yeah,
so I think it's a cowardly, the term I would use, and it's very similar to the meddling part, is compromised. And getting into why both those words for both these games feel like they'll apply is that playing both of these games, it does not take very long for a person to go, oh, it's very clear that, I'll start with Final Fantasy 16, this game got made the way it did because someone at Square Enix said, oh, the next Final Fantasy, it should be sort of like Game of Thrones, but action. And it is so clear that they wanted the sort of world and the tone and everything like that. Oh, it should be like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, like, from what I've seen of Final Fantasy 16, it felt like, oh, it's Game of Thronesy-ness, but, like, still a Final Fantasy, big, grandiose fantasy, so, like...
they've come out and they've said, like, oh, yeah, Game of Thrones was an inspiration for us.
That
but
makes sense.
I
assume
like...
also Berserk, because it looks like Berserk. Like, everything in this game looks like fucking Berserk!
No... I don't feel like I'm sure there was
main boy Clive is kind of gutsy.
Yes, I think there is some influence in that sense, but not from like the writing or the world in a meaningful way. I definitely think.
All right, fair enough.
Just Berserk has X in it. Sure, they did those things, but like, why does Berserk have X? Why does Berserk do a certain thing in a certain way? It's just not there at all. Because again, I don't think it's just they took influence from Game of Thrones. I think it was a executive direction that went, no, make it like Game of Thrones. That's what this game should be.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the like, oh, well, that's both the meddling and why it feels like a lot of this is just compromised. So sticking with Final Fantasy 16. So part of this game has slavery. So, you kind of talked about like Berserk. Oh, Berserk has heavy topics like this.
Oh, yeah.
But again,
So
it just feels like it just has that because someone said it should.
We want to make a dark fantasy thing. Dark fantasy things have slavery. It's got war. It's got killing, assault, sexual assaults.
Yeah.
We got that stuff in this game.
Actually, I think at one point it does have a sexual assault.
Really? Shit. I was just joking.
Implication. It has nudity in this. It has a weird incestuous relationship happen.
Definitely Game of Thrones.
Kinda. It's a weird thing.
I mean, the Lannisters, so like Jaime and Cersei. So,
yes, but this is like actually not incest because it's weird.
Justifying your weird incest kinks. I got you.
But like all that stuff just feels like it's in there because some executive said, well, it should be. So like the slavery part, it doesn't explain why this world has slavery, what that means for it. It's not interested in having those conversations. And then going to Dragon Age, the Veilguard, this one is a little bit more documented in terms of its tumultuous development, where it was initially supposed to be sort of a live service game. EA seemed to realize, hey, those markets kind of saturated. This might not work. Okay, we're going to shift this to a more single-player focused game instead. And we want it to be like Jedi Fallen Order and Sony's God of War, the sort of reboot, I guess you would call them, or shift in genre, but basically 2018 and Ragnarok. It wanted those to be those two, and like it's definitely a game where you can just tell that. So there previously were 3 Dragon Age games: Dragon Age 1, Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay.
Let me just double check. I don't think there are any. Oh no, there are some other spin-offs. I have never heard of any of these. There. Journeys, Legends, Heroes of Dragon Age, a free-to-play mobile game for mobile devices.
Well, weird little mobile.
I don't know any of those, but there's only the previous 3 that matter. And they even put out, I forget if we had a podcast on it. They even put out a Netflix series on it, which was okay.
I was going to do an episode on that, but it was just so very okay.
Yeah. But one thing I think is
pretty
just...
good. Watch it, people.
That the compromise part of this, Dragon Age the Veilguard, kind of similar to, and why I'm talking about both these, much like Final Fantasy 16, it's just not interested in actually exploring its world, in actually
that's too bad.
Delving into things and really making it feel like a lived-in fantasy world.
That's really too bad. I mean, that's one of the main mission statements of fantasy, is to give you that like immersion of this lived-in world that you could be a part of, kind of thing.
It's both these games. It's that is just not there in either. So like, Final Fantasy 16, there's basically these 7 different kingdoms, and this game is just it was not interested in delving into the politics between the realms and the histories. There's some of that there, but a lot of it is just like in a codex kind of thing. Oh, you can go and read about some of this stuff if you want, but and they have some ideas of, okay, this realm functions this way. This realm over here functions this way instead. But it just feels like someone had to sit there and go, come up with 7 different kingdoms.
Yeah.
Not hey, come up with 7 different kingdoms, and also how do they interact together, and what does that mean, and all that. And Dragon Age of Veilguard very much seems to just have that problem too, where it's really disappointing because Inquisition had a lot of politicking in it. We went to
Yep.
Oh, I can't think of what the name of the realm is. It's basically called something like Lyon, where it's supposed to be this sort of
it's the weird little like French place. I know what you mean.
Yes, where you get the female mage character from who joined your party and that. And that had all this political intrigue, and there is actually I wonder if I can find the name of the place.
Orlais.
Yes, Orlais. That's what it was called.
Yes, because Vivienne, the mage, is Orlesian.
Yes. Antiva, that's it. So, Antiva is this city where it is ruled over by this group called the Crows, who instead of having a military, they basically have these assassins. And the whole idea is, hey, instead of us ever truly having to go to war, we just, sort of murder their generals and their key figures. Well, their, armies aren't going to be organized, they crumble. This city gets attacked and taken over by, I cannot remember the name of the race, but they're basically sort of these Minotaur-like people that or
Kunari.
Like Kunari, that's it, or like tieflings. They're obviously inspired by them.
Yes, very easily so.
They kind of attack and take over, and you're like, okay, sure. The Kunari, the Kun, are a bit of a conquering race and nation.
Yep.
But why Antiva specific? What's their relationship like? Why would they want to take over? How are the people feeling? And it's kind of just not interested in going into that and explaining this. It just feels like somebody went, well, we have these groups. They need to fight. And it all feels like somebody at a top level said, no, these are combat action games. We can't slow things down and have all this political drama. We can spend all this time explaining stuff. People don't want that. They want cool actions. Not
this one. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the gameplay is very different in this game.
Neither of these are. So getting into that part.
Come on. Go on.
All right, before we quite get into that, after I finished both these games, I went back and decided I'm going to play the Mass Effect Legendary re-release.
Good call.
About 2 years since I played it, and I want to make sure I'm not misremembering certain things, or I'm not inflating things in my memory, or like conflating things, not inflating, conflating things with my memory. It is not just these two games that I think are guilty of this. I think it's a problem with a lot of games recently where, hey, for fans of the Bear, part of season 3 is that Carmi gets this obsession about, oh, no, we have to subtract from the dish. We have to get to the essence of the dish. No. Less ingredients, more focus. A lot of games feel like they have done that to their detriment. Because in both Final Fantasy 16 and Dragon Age the Veilguard, basically the only thing you can do in both those games is combat. If it is not combat,
what?
There is very little gameplay here.
But,
sure, you can run around, you can talk to people, you can buy equipment, etc. But the actual gameplay that you do, just the action part. Somebody went here and said, lockpicking minigames? None of those. They say on the rails sequence of some kind? None of that. Hey, using just different skills to solve puzzles or whatever? None of that. Combat, combat, combat. That's what these games are.
Man,
and
like, I really enjoy the gameplay of the Dragon Age games. I know that Veilguard is very different because it's an action game instead of an RPG. And that's fine if they want to make it more of an action game, but getting rid of, well, stripping down the social aspect of a Dragon Age game is just a shame.
So that part sucks, but I think even more than stripping out the social aspect for both of these games, the thing that makes it boring is that there's just nothing to break up that gameplay. And going back and playing Mass Effect for me was just a good reminder of like, hey, Mass Effect 1, the lockpicking minigame, it's not a good game. It's basically there are these dots on the screen that you have to hover a cursor over, and it's going to reveal a symbol, and then you just match two symbols. So you have to basically hover over and go like, oh, this one's a triangle, this one's a circle, this one's a square, this one's a triangle. Okay, click on this, click on the other triangle, match. You're basically like completing
I forgot that
circuit
game.
board patterns.
Oh, okay, I forgot the game had lockpicking mini games.
You don't even have to engage with them anymore. You can just convert stuff to Omnigel and skip those. But it has those.
That's probably what I did.
There's some other instances, like when you're on Novaria, there's a like I forget what you call it, but it's sort of the game of the like, hey, you have to get all the colored rings onto the same peg. Like that sort of kids game where it's like, hey, you've got,
what's that called? Yeah.
Yellow, red, green, these circles, they're jumbled up, and you have to figure out like, okay, I gotta move this one to this one, so we move this here to this here thing. Like, it has these various mini games. It has, you're driving around in the Mako, etc.
The Mako. Mm-hmm.
There's stuff to break it up. Right.
Yeah.
BioWare's had that in the past.
Not just fights.
Previous Dragon Age games have had mini games like that, etc. On the Final Fantasy side, in particular, it was seeing footage of whatever the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 was called. That thing has a bunch of other mini games. There's this card game people love, Queen's Blood, I think is the name of it. Queen's Gambit, I forget. I've
Queen's
seen
Gambit
stuff.
is a show on Netflix. So.
Okay, must be Queen's Blood then. There's like a mini game where it's people doing like military drill routines, flipping the guns and stuff.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Literally,
yeah, okay.
It's very basic. You are it's an incredibly basic, rhythm game where you are just pressing the face button to match stuff. But it is at least something that breaks up the variety of gameplay, and both of these feel. I'm gonna blame the execs. Feels like exec went, nope, people don't like those. Gotta cut them out. It's like, hey, actually, most people don't mind these things.
Can I make an
in
observation?
Moderation. Yeah, go ahead.
So around what time? I think it was like 2020, 2021. Shenmue 3 came out, and it had a lot of these mini games that broke up the game as a whole, and the social aspects were there and all that stuff. Shenmue 3 is not a very good game. But
you take that back.
I will not take that back.
Yu Suzuki is a visionary.
He was, and still is. But I think his vision's a little clouded.
No, we're gonna get the other 4 Shenmue games that he promised us.
There's no way. They take like 10 years to make each one. He will basically George R. R. Martin himself. Anyway, point is, so Shenmue 3 came out and had a lot of these mini games that broke up the combat, but a big point that people made about Shenmue 3 was that there's so few times you'll be doing the combat that like, and the only other comment that you will be doing are training sessions where you're just doing one move over and over again, in that there's no way to practice and get better at the combat. And like, oh, there's too many mini games. And they went like, maybe, because Shenmue came out as like, it was hyped as a big return to form for Shenmue, and Final Fantasy 16 in similar fashion was a big return to form to Final Fantasy back when it was first being, like paraded around, and everybody was dunking on Shenmue for kind of being old and weird and having too many mini games, and they probably went like, yeah, strip that back.
Yeah, there's definitely more than that, right? People definitely got tired of lockpicking mini games. They definitely got tired of.
I got to say, I'm going back through the first Spider-Man game that Insomniac made, and that's got too many mini games.
Yeah, it's a case of moderation. But I think to go with a popular game that also essentially the only gameplay mechanics to it are combat, or interacting with characters. Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about it, there's really only two gameplay components to it. Either you're engaged in combat or you're talking to people. Otherwise, there's not
exploration.
There's no lock-picking mini games. Sure, right.
You're right.
These games have it. But the thing that makes that work with it is it still has the RPG element and things that break it up, where, hey, it doesn't have a lock-picking mini game, but when you get to a locked door, you still get to make certain decisions. And those decisions could be, okay, let's look around, let's go talk to people, try and find a key. Maybe you do try and lockpick it. Maybe I have a skill. Let's roll the dice. Maybe, you know what? Screw it. Just going to use brute force, smash this door down, whether it's a hammer, a spell, whatever.
Yeah.
So it has an RPG element. It makes the things you do still feel like they matter. Whereas in these games, they just go, no, either you can pass through this door or you can't. It doesn't matter. There's like, in Veilguard, there's at least some stuff where like certain characters have the individual skills. So it's like, oh, if you bring this character into this map, now you can get up to this spot where a chest is because they're going to use their power.
Yeah.
But like, it's not interesting, and you're never using it of like, oh, because you didn't bring this character, you had to go the long way around, and this fight was way more difficult. If you had brought this character, you could have, had them lockpick this door and skip this. Like, they've just so focused on the idea of, oh, what people love is combat, that it's just made it boring. It's just made it, okay, the only thing I can do is fight in these games. It never matters what decisions I make or anything that I do before the fighting is not then going to impact the rest of what I'm doing or even impact the fighting. And I think it sucks because, especially for Dragon Age, knowing that I guess they're just called I need to look at, is it just called the Star Wars Jedi series?
Yes. Or the Old Republic series.
I don't know. It doesn't. The Wikipedia page doesn't seem to have.
You mean for like the KOTOR games?
No. Like the Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two that they took inspiration from for the Veilguard.
Oh, yeah, they said that, yes.
I don't think this series has a name yet. There's nothing listed.
No common vernacular about what
they're
both called in tandem. No, it's interesting. That's kind of weird, actually.
Yeah.
It's something.
Weird. Whatever. Well, we're going to call it the Star Wars Jedi series. Like,
sure.
That game, it's it's more of an action platformer. So it says, hey, you know what? We're going to have you do like time trial platforming and stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll have to use your powers to do a bunch of puzzle solving.
Yeah. Use the
if
force
either of these games had some of that,
sure,
would have saved so much of these games.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned that, like, okay, like Inquisition had some of that stuff, and so did Baldur's Gate 3 had some of that stuff. Like, you could solve puzzles via, like, you know, pushing little switches and levers and that kind of stuff, and that's part of the exploration puzzle solving shit. But if Veilguard has like almost none to nothing, like nothing at all.
It doesn't. Final Fantasy 16 doesn't, and it also ends up meaning that
okay,
all of the areas you go to are just they're meaningless. They might as well just be
no character. Each one's the same place.
Zelda-style combat rooms. Because, okay, I'm running through these places, but the only thing I'm running through them to do is combat. If I'm not solving puzzles, if I'm not using skills to get past things.
So, one thing I always praise Zelda for is that they do pretty well with the combat puzzle idea. Kind of like how, like, even Halo did this back in the day, where, like, hey, every combat is like, okay, here are the enemies. Each one can be taken down via a series of different things, and your current situation might lend yourself being better against these guys, but not quite these guys. So you got to figure out how to deal with these guys in, like, let's say.
These both have stuff like that to a certain extent.
Okay.
So, you know, Dragon Age continues the Mass Effect and Dragon Age Inquisition style, where you kind of pause the menu and you can order your companions to use a certain skill.
Sure,
and so your skills can combo, and certain skills, hey, this will do more damage against barriers versus this will do more against shields. And Final Fantasy 16 kind of has a similar certain characters you have to try and like break through their defense kind of thing, but it's more like the open world when you're running around in a field or you're running through some sort of cave going from room to room. Okay, I'm moving to room, but there's nothing in these rooms other than just combat. So, okay, maybe there's the occasional chest, but I think about what Pokemon Legends Arceus did, where that took the world of Pokemon and it said, okay, 3D environment, we're going to let you run around. How do we make it matter that you can run around and have more to this world than just, okay, here are the Pokemon or here are trainers to fight, right? How do we give you something to interact with the actual environment, like the literal, in this case, environment, the trees, the plants, the rocks, whatever. And it said, oh, well, duh, just add crafting, right? So, hey, instead of buying Pokeballs, you're going to craft Pokeballs. So now trees matter because the trees are going to get you wood. These rocks matter because you need wood and rock to craft your Pokeball. And the previous Dragon Age game had that. Inquisition had a pretty deep crafting weapon and armor system where you would have to get materials.
To mention the base building.
I should have gone back. I don't remember if how much like collecting materials affected the base building.
A little bit, but it's mostly to do with like if you collect certain things in the environment, but then it's mostly to do with like the war room stuff, like going to certain areas and collecting things with your armies and then coming back.
Yes. Okay, that's that makes sense. But I definitely remember, okay, you need X amount of this material so you can craft, this gem, or you can craft this dagger or whatever.
Exactly.
Had it fairly extensive. Both these games sort of have that, but it is so light as to be borderline meaningless. Like in Final Fantasy 16, you can craft new weapons, but it's a completely linear thing where it's just like, okay, well, the next weapon is always better than the previous. There's no, oh, well, you can craft this weapon and you can select, actually, I want to add, more lightning skills because I really like you can basically select, I think it's like, in this game, they have icons, which are your summons, and then you can basically equip 2 of them, and that lets you choose which sort of elemental attacks you have, and they're not just elemental attacks, like different icons will give you different moves. So like, if you choose the wind icon, you get this attack where you just start slashing like this, but if you choose the rock one, you get a like reflectability and stuff.
Cool.
But like the crafting of weapons, you're not getting to choose, hey, I want a weapon that's going to buff those abilities. Both of these games it's kind of why that cowardly word was rattling around, and why I think the cowardly is true, but only for the execs, and why I prefer compromise, because then it feels like I'm not blaming everyone involved in these games.
Right. I can see what you mean by executive cowardice, though.
Yes. Both of these games feel like an executive went, oh no, we can't have these complex crafting menus. We can't have people having to like stare at stuff and go, I don't understand how to
but sir, Minecraft's big though. Minecraft's big. Gotta have a crafting system somehow.
Money simple.
Okay, simple crafting. Minecraft puts money, but simple Minecraft money. Okay. Money mouth now. Craft simple, yes, make money.
Craft.
No craft?
Money. No craft. Money.
Okay, but Minecraft.
You go.
Okay.
Money.
Okay, money.
But that's what it feels. And I think both these games. It's. We were talking about this. I don't think it was last episode. I forget what it was about, but talking about the idea that, with these games that they now take. So Dragon Age the Veilguard, that's been in development since 2015.
Sure has been.
A decade. Now, admittedly, in development,
probably, yes. They stopped to make anthems, so
Well, but in development, in some cases, like I forget what game it was that people point to and they go, "Oh my God, can you believe how long this game was in development?" It's like, okay, for 3 of those years, it was like 6 people spending a couple hours a month on this, just like spitballing ideas, a bit of concept art kind of thing. It's like, it was in development in the sense that, hey, there are people thinking stuff up. But that would be like saying that, a movie is in development from the first day that a script writer starts penning the script, right? Mm-hmm. It would be like saying Squid Games took 10 years of development. It's like, well, no. The guy wrote the initial script, and then he'd have to pitch it, rewrites, etc. It was really only in development for, whatever, like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, that's a year and a half, probably.
Final Fantasy 16 also, that actually, I'm never going to find this Wikipedia page. It's actually so there was like this Final Fantasy trailer they put out, which I think was initially going to be 13.
Yep.
And then they changed the idea of what 13 was going to be. And eventually it circled back into this game. And like the trailer kind of has nothing to do with this game at all. But parts and ideas of this game have been there for a long time. And even the prequel to, not prequel, the Final Fantasy before this, Final Fantasy 15.
Yes.
That came out in 2016.
Yeah.
And 16 came out in 2023, so 7 years between those two games. I am not trying to absolve the executives. I think regardless, these are both bad ideas. But some of those things around, we need to, right? We can't have complex crafting menus. People don't like these things. We need to take it out.
Yeah.
I can see why in 2015, 2016, 2017, even to a certain extent 2018, why somebody would look at those things and make those decisions, say, no, this is how games have to be. And then you get stuck with those decisions. I'm sure. Actually, let me correct. I'm not sure because execs, regardless of the industry, are idiots. But a lot of the people below them, I am sure, are now presenting data and presenting counter arguments when they try and do things like this and say, no, strip out the crafting. People don't want that. People don't want these complex menus. And they're going,
People love it.
Case in point, Baldur's Gate 3 made billions. People love complex menus. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or, hey, case in point, Elden Ring. People don't mind having to figure stuff out. We don't have to spoon feed them.
Nope.
Yes, people are dumb, but enough people are not that dumb.
Yeah.
You can make a game that pushes the player, that challenges them, that makes them have to engage with the game and still have it be a success. So I feel like whatever the next Final Fantasy is, whatever the next Mass Effect is, those games are not going to make these same mistakes. Or I sure hope they don't, because, oh my God, I can't believe the execs would be that dumb to not listen to everyone below them.
Well, I feel like they might be. I mean...
Yeah, look, execs are dumb.
Pretty brain dead, yeah.
The game producers, the directors, whoever, I'm sure all of them have looked at stuff and gone, no, this is stupid. We can challenge our players. We can have these things in there.
Yeah.
People do not hate RPGs. They never did.
No.
Certainly, JRPGs are not nearly as popular as other genres.
Yes.
Even some of the best-selling ones, your Personas, I know Metaphor ReFantazio, that was like a pretty big success.
Yeah, it was,
for Atlas and Sega. That's who owns that. It was a big success. It's I mean, only sold a few million copies. Sure. A quick search. So from 5 months ago, it had sold over 1 million. I mean, maybe that's up to 2 to 3 million now.
Speaking of Sega, just quickly, I mean, like your beloved series, the Yakuza series, they pivoted hard to an RPG style.
Yes.
RPGs don't sell? Well, what's this then?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't sell huge numbers. I think those games
they
sell
don't,
around 1 million.
Still, they're beloved.
But they sell enough, and I thought like Dragon Age Inquisition was a very good balance between RPG while also being action-y. But Baldur's Gate 3 proves people love RPGs. That game has
hard
sold,
RPGs, yes. I
believe over 20 million copies.
Nice.
Let's just do a quick search.
Numbers.
So according to IGN, around this article appears to be from November of 2024. Now I'm not sure if it's been edited because boy, this site sucks.
IGN in general, or
well, just in general, but the specific page I was looking at. But it sold at least 15 million copies, and that is
nice.
A while ago.
Yeah.
So very clear, RPGs can sell. People like RPGs. You just have to make a good one, and you have to, and I get this is very difficult. Saying, oh, you just have to respect their time. Wow, that's easier said than done.
It really is, yeah.
Hey, you have good gameplay mechanics. Yep. Okay, well, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, true.
But both these games just feel like executives went, no, people don't like RPGs. They don't. Yeah. People hate having to make decisions. They want linear paths. It's like, no, people actually love being able to make decisions, and they love having the feeling of being rewarded, or even the feeling of failing for making the wrong choice. I think about, to me, in Mass Effect, the canonical way that things went, because my first ever main playthrough of 2 was the crew got taken by the collectors, and I went, oh, well, it'd be stupid to just go charging in. No, let's go finish some of the I think they just call them companion missions. Yeah. Oh, let's finish those up. Let's clear out these other things. Let's go. And I went there, and it was like, hey, all the Cerberus crew are dead. Basically, just Dr. Chakawas got to live. And I went, I'm okay with that. I don't... Like, the Cerberus people are kind of all racist, so whatever. But, like, that's a failure. If you think about it, it's, hey, you literally let dozens of your crew die, but I'm okay with it. And I think that's something that we've seen also outside of RPGs. I think last year's Helldivers 2, great example of it. That is a game that is willing to let players get dangerous with one another. That, hey, someone could call in a stratagem that could just wipe out literally the entire team. That
friendly fire is always on, and that's just part of the game.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
People like to be they like to potentially fail, as long as you still make it enjoyable, right? It can't be and I think it's why in some ways JRPGs fell out of fashion to a certain extent, or have problems. I think back to Bravely Default. A game that initially I really liked, and then the longer I played it, I did not like, and then got to the end boss, and unless you had created so the way that game worked is you would get like jobs or classes, right? So you'd have white mage, black mage, warrior, archer style. Whatever. Any character could be any class. Yeah. But they leveled up. So you couldn't just go, and I don't remember any of the names of the characters, so, but hey, your main character, John RPG Man, you couldn't like constantly be rotating through, every single class, because then none of them would really get to level up. You wouldn't get any good skills, etc., etc.
You want to stick with something for a little while at least.
Yeah, so you'd want to rotate between 2 or 3 different ones and focus on those per character. So you'd still want all the different classes spread across your characters, but you kind of go, okay, John RPG Man, you're going to have, leveled up as a warrior, as an archer, and a like cleric or something. Meanwhile, Sarah RPG Man, you're going to be the white mage, the black mage, and the red mage, or whatever it is, or like the arcanist or something,
If you have any boosts or physical stats, son, geez, that's one side of it.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
But if you got to the end boss, and you had not chosen some kind of very specific configuration of classes for your characters, it's basically like, oh, well, now your only option is you basically have to do a bunch of grinding, because if you don't use these very specific classes, the way that this boss character attacks, you're screwed. And that is far from the only RPG that did stuff like that.
It's an
Persona
older school
4 had that problem. Hey, you basically can only really properly level up 4 characters or 3 additional characters besides your main character in that game. And if you choose
team and stick with it,
wrong 3 for the end boss, it's just a miserable fight. Yep. And so, I'm not sitting here saying RPGs are flawless and don't have problems, but I also think the decision with stuff like Final Fantasy 16 and Dragon Age Veilguard to go, all right, well, just take all that out, and then your companions just don't like it. So in Final Fantasy 16, you sort of have companions, but you cannot control them at all.
Okay,
they just do their own thing. Dragon Age Veilguard, you do have companions, but they both only get 2 skills to choose from.
Oh, come on.
Yes. And
Mass Effect 3 at least.
None of the fights matter which 2 you bring in. Some of them would be slightly easier of, okay, well, this character, you have a skill that does damage to like physical shields instead of magical barriers, and then this character has a skill that combos off of it and does extra damage when you apply skill 1 than skill 2 kind of thing. So sure, the fight's easier, but it's not like you can go into the fight and, if you don't have those, hey, it's going to be way more difficult. It's more just like, you just won't clear it as quickly as all that happens. And
you'll still get through, little guy.
Yeah.
You'll still do it.
Final Fantasy 16, going back to, okay, you have the different icons, but it never matters which 2 you take into a fight. It's not like, because you took in the fire icon and this enemy's weak to fire, that's going to make it easier to burn through their shield, and then you can combo off with this other one. It just doesn't do that. They've clearly just gone, well, no, we need to make it so that people can't make wrong decisions.
Man, I hate that though. Like it's fine. Okay, it is okay to make wrong decisions, because the option is you can always grind it out and basically get yourself to a decent spot where you get yourself out of the situation. I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, there is no real wrong way to play, let's say, Elden Ring. But I mean, if at certain points you decide to experiment across the broad spectrum of things and you've kind of fucked your character over a little bit, you can always go and respec. You can always just focus on one style of weapon that you did like and that kind of thing. There are myriad ways to get out of it. But there's always the option of, like, you screw yourself for at least a little bit. And that's fine. That's just games. That's just video games.
Yeah.
All games are like that.
These both of these games are just afraid to let you fail.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Which kind of brings me to this podcast, our title, Everything is Fine, Nothing's Ruined. Gosh. Sure, both of these games are failures, but I don't think this is indicative of the industry at large, RPGs at large are doomed. We talked about Baldur's Gate 3 did well. Metaphor Refantasio, Like a Dragon, all these games are doing well. But even for these series, when I look at even just what Final Fantasy did with the 7 remakes, reinterpretations, I don't know what to call them, because they're not really remakes anymore, because they're kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah, reinterpretation is the best way to call it, I think.
Yeah.
I think they call them remakes, but they aren't necessarily remakes.
No, and like they're a retelling in a lot of ways. But when I look at that for Final Fantasy, and I see again the variety of gameplay that thing has, the way that it does make your companions actually matter, in the sense that they have different gameplay styles. They're not quite in the they matter like in a Baldur's Gate 3 where no, if you if you bring I'm trying to think of a good scenario, but like, if you bring Gale, because of his magic, he can just cast this spell, and then, you can just float over this trap, and you can just completely skip having to go around this area to get to this treasure chest, whatever it is. Right? They're not quite there with those games, but I do think that they will learn lessons from this, and they will realize, hey, actually, we do need to go down that path of, no, actually, which companions you have with you should matter. It should feel different that, hey, if your party is made up of characters A, B, and C, that's going to feel very different than D, E, and F to what you can do.
Yeah.
Like, again, both these games clearly wanted to be like, a God of War where, they're very kind of more, hey, all that matters is the character you're playing as, and even if, whatever the kids, Atreus was there in God of War, he'd always just be shooting his bows, whatever.
Yeah.
They clearly wanted to copy that. I don't think that works here. I think they're going to go back. That's going to matter. I think they will focus more on actual world building. We've seen enough where get something like a Metaphor ReFantasio, seeing the success that game saw. I do think that these companies will look at stuff and go, hey, actually, what we tried with those games, no, make it more like a live service game, and that, hey, people aren't necessarily as much here for the story and the world. They're here for the combat action and the loot and all that, even though both these games, not really loot matters. But I think they'll learn from that. I think Dragon Age, to me, it's clear that EA knows that actually the market is saturated.
Yeah.
And that, hey, yeah, we want more live service games. We want those games that make $1 billion a year instead of these once every X number of year game that we put out and don't even make $1 billion. But I do believe that with them acknowledging the market is saturated, actually what we need to do is say, over here, we are going to spend X amount of money.
Yep.
These are our big single player games that that deliver on what people want as single player games. And then over here, this other pot of money, this is the pot of money for live service games. That hey, we're not going to put all of our eggs in one basket like we were and say, no, everything needs to be a live service game, because we're realizing actually that doesn't work. Most live service games will fail.
Yeah,
we need to split our spend and go, no, this is the live service money. And so I don't know that the next Mass Effect will in fact be a great game, but I at least feel confident it's not going to fail for the reasons that Dragon Age the Veilguard did. That it's not going to be these meddling, the same meddling and the same compromises having to be made because of executives. And that it does feel like not just these games, but even I think across the games industry, across genres, that publishers have kind of had enough failures of the live service of these kind of games. And then they've seen the success of their competition, like a Baldur's Gate, to go, actually, hey, this pivot to live service, it wasn't 100% wrong, but we did it in the wrong way of saying, oh, all of our games have to be live service. Instead, what we should have said was, no, we're going to have,
that's way too bad,
2 Dragon Age games made. One over here is the traditional single player. The other thing over here that's how we're going to try our live service with this franchise. Rather than going, no, the only way this franchise still exists is live service. That doesn't work. So
yeah,
I feel confident. That said, games take a long time. I still think it's going to be another 2 to 4 years of
You're probably
weird
right.
live service games coming out, and you just look at it going, why
this
would
genre's
you try and
dead. Stop.
live service is definitely not dead.
Oh, it's getting there.
The market's saturated, that's for sure. So like the trying to put out a live service game, that part I think is
that part's dead.
Yeah.
But like Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, or even Overwatch 2 is still kind of happening.
It's actually, for as much as people disparage that game, for lack of a better term. That game was always pretty good, and actually, hey, it's not as big as Overwatch 1 was, but it's also not dying. It's
not doing bad.
Its numbers are pretty good.
Yeah, League of Legends is still around, Dota, etc. Yeah, like
Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft,
PUBG's still here,
GTA 5, PUBG. Yeah. No, the market's saturated, but I think lessons are clearly being learned that, okay, you should still try and make a live service game, because if that hits, you're in the money. That's a lot of money. But that taking all of your games, it's like Sony's a good example, trying to take all of your existing franchises and go, no, they're all now live service, will not work. And then you have nothing else. You put all your eggs into this thing and it fails, and then you have to split the pot.
I gotta say, it must be real upsetting to executives when they have a live service thing. They tried to make it with an existing IP and it failed. And then Marvel Rivals comes out and people fucking love it. Just the boiling inanity inside of those executives. It's palpable. I love it. It's got to be a thing.
I'm sure they're all pissed off that, it worked for them, but when we tried to do it, it didn't.
Well, Marvel Rivals, because Marvel Rivals did something kind of different from the other live service action shooter, hero shooter things.
Also because, it's like, it's also, if you look at the history of like Marvel games, okay, well, the idea of like, what if you made the Marvel characters fight each other? Well, obviously that's going to work. Like,
people love that.
You can literally go back to the mid 90s with arcades, and it's like, like those existed. Yeah. And also then just going like, okay, well, how are they going to fight? Oh, I don't know, a hero shooter or Overwatch style thing. Like,
good enough.
This is just a very logical synergy. You look and go, okay, it's obviously a cash-in, but it's a cash-in that works. It doesn't feel bad like the way of someone just going, live action Dragon Age. What does that? What does that mean? Like what kind of a live action game? You could do like a Genshin off of it, but Genshin's mostly a single player game that just has gacha mechanics. Otherwise, like it's primarily a single player game.
Yep, primarily.
But I have hope that hey, are RPGs going to have a big resurgence? No, probably not. Because as we were saying,
I think they were just there, and that's good enough.
They don't sell that well, but I think these companies have realized that, hey, actually, as long as you just budget properly, making this RPG that sells, a couple million copies, that's still good. That's still decent money. And then, hey, maybe eventually there will actually be an idea for them that works on live service. And then you've built this foundational base of fans and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough ranting out of me. Although, I will just say, if anyone is interested in these games, I did like them. For all my complaints I have, they're still pretty fun to play. There's still some good characters in there, some fun moments, funny moments.
Sure.
The combat in both, pretty enjoyable. So I do recommend them, especially if you can get them on a decent sale. But they're also very problematic games, so don't go in expecting to love either of them.
I'm just gonna say Dragon Age Origins is on sale for like $7, so like maybe just play.
The game's kind of rough to play now.
Look, just whatever, get past it. Also, Inquisitions is also the same price, so just play
Inquisitions. I definitely recommend, but Origins is it's a little rough. It's an aged a little poorly.
It feels like a 2008 game for sure. Like it feels like that.
Yeah.
So I hear you, but still. Yeah, I mean, like, there's always the option of going back and playing those games. These two don't sound that bad from what you've said, but I just gotta say, like, it sucks. It sucks to me on a personal level that, like, okay, a Final Fantasy with a more mature tone doesn't do very well, and a Dragon Age in which Scout Harding is actually a romanceable character doesn't do very well. I feel, man, I am upset. No, don't say it. I know what you're gonna say. Don't say it. Nope.
I maybe made some choices in that game, and
what did you do?
Scout Harding died.
Whatever. Everybody's playthrough is different.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care.
No. So EA contacted me, and basically my decisions, they became canon, and they put a patch, and so now it's the only choice you can make.
Interesting. That's
yeah.
Odd that they did that. Kind of respect the move, though.
Yeah.
No, we like this one the most. This one is the one.
I don't know why. But
she dies. Yeah. Fuck Scout Harding. Lace Harding, dead as a doorknob.
What they said.
Yeah. Gotta kill her. Everybody loves the short stack of the freckles. Not Hassan. Let her die.
I didn't know my decision was going to kill her.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we all go into those decisions going, oh, this should be fine. Oh, geez, no. Yeah, I mean, like,
none of your other decisions really have consequences, so I just wasn't expecting it. Just
it's too bad. I mean, like, it's probably not as like well telegraphed as like Mass Effect 2's or whatever. Where like, because to BioWare's credit, at one point in Mass Effect 2, that game telegraphed your decisions or matter so hard that like I came out with 100% success rate of like saving everybody, literally 100%.
Okay, I see.
That's apparently extremely hard to do.
Didn't realize you cared that much for joining Cerberus.
I didn't, but I saved their lives because I'm a good person.
I see. Mm-hmm. Sure.
There's still space Nazis, and it's still in the third game wholeheartedly destroy the facility. So
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, wrapping this up. Anything else you want to say about Dragon Age Veilguard or Final Fantasy 16?
No, I think we covered everything. Just to summarize my closing thoughts. Hey, these might be failures, but the future of RPGs I'm very hopeful for.
I agree with that. I think RPGs are going to stick around. I mean, there's a lot out there, and people will keep making RPGs, and I think that like RPGs in general, there's always something for somebody out there, whether it's more action based or more like turn based. You'll find something you enjoy. Anyway, I guess it's it for our show. You should go to our Blue Sky, which is at eifnir. We're there. Yell at us about how much you enjoy one of these two games, or if you don't, you could do that too. Just one of the two. If you're like a fence sitter, I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Give me your hard opinions. Give me your hot takes.
What if I'm a fence leaner?
Ooh, okay. Leaning on the fence is fine. That means you're on one side of the yeah. I mean, you're still on one side. Yeah, you can't like sit in the fence and lean at the same time. It could, but you're gonna tip over one side. If you're leaning though, it's like, oh, you're already one side, but you're leaning on it, so that way, yeah, you want to be a fence sitter, but you can't be. Anyway, only hot takes is what I'm trying to say. Just hot takes on Final Fantasy 16 and Dragon Age Veilguard. Yeah, you should also go to our Spotify and iTunes pages, like and subscribe on YouTube, I guess. Until you feel fulfilled with your life, listen to our show. Hopefully that's more than an episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sure.
I mean, we had the playlist there. Just let her rip. Let her.
Oh, Beyblade.
Rip, Beyblade style, yes. Yeah. Like, let her just spin our show into a big bowl and then it crash into her, like, spinning top. We're really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that like weird crazy crank where you duct tape two you duct tape two of the rip cords together so it's like extra long. Yeah. I may have watched some recent videos on actual Beyblade.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
I got curious. I got Beyblade curious. You should also go to friendsdjdanny.com. That does music. He is not Beyblade curious, as far as I know.
Should be.
Should be. We all should be. Anyway, that is it for our show. Tune in for another effulging episode of Everything Is Fucking Is Ruined. See ya.
See ya.
Say it.